becomes, what does your art of a book say about the book? What does the art in a book say? What does the art say about the book? And how critical art choices are in books for kids, in picture books. So we're going to talk about that tonight as well. It's 4:59, folks. We're talking about the stuff we talk about. My name is Sean Buvala, and we're going to get talking tonight about art in children's books. So when somebody comes to me with a kid's book in mind, what am I thinking? So an author comes to me and says, I have this idea for a children's book. The first thing we do with them is we send them to our website so that they can watch the videos I have put out about publishing. The videos are there for a couple of reasons. One is to educate. You don't have to be an author to watch them, but also as just a tiny little bit of a hoop for people to jump through. Because I want to know, is the person who's trying to get me to spend company money, and more importantly, company time, to put a book out, are they teachable and coachable? Are they willing to learn? Are they willing to be better as an author than they were when we first got together? Now that sounds terribly egotistical, but the truth is that many authors who get great ideas in their mind don't know a lot about the process of publishing, and we try to teach that through some of the videos and what the different types of things are. So that's the first thing I do. And once they've done that, once I know that, okay, they're really interested, when I look at their book, when I look at whatever context they've brought, there's two things that are going on in my mind. One is, what are the words? What are the words? What's the story? What's happening here? Is it the same story that's been told 1,000 times? Is it the same story that's been told 1,000 times but has a unique hook, or has a unique energy, or has something that makes me go, oh, okay? Is it the same kind of easy idea that everybody else puts out? Or is there something to it that makes us go, oh yeah, that's really interesting? And as I'm having those conversations in my own mind about a book, and if it passes the first test of, okay, this is an interesting story, and there's something here, there's something about the author that makes the work unique, there's something about the words that make the work unique, the very next thing that I'm thinking about is art. What would the art look like for the book, the publishing, the idea that's in front of me? What would that art look like? Because it's not just, oh, this book would look cute, but in my mind, how would it look cute? What would be the thing? What is the energy about the book? So, for example, when Amanda first started talking to me about 10 Ballet Dancers, I saw that book in my mind as something that was gentle, as something that was big, something that was inviting, something that was inclusive. I saw all this stuff in my brain before the book was even out. And so in my mind, the book would have art that was as smart and as welcoming and inviting as the subject matter itself. This cute, by the way, this story is not just another version of a countdown from 10. There's a surprise, a twist, what we like to call a pattern interrupt. Pattern interrupts are really important. There's a pattern interrupt in a book. And so when now my screen just went weird. I hope you can still see me. All of a sudden I have antivirus software popping up. I hope I'm still here with you. So in my mind, I saw this book with a certain feel in it right away. I knew right away that the book wasn't going to be kind of cartoony. This was the wrong style for that book. So we start to say, what are the images and the emotions that the book promotes? So when we look at something like Hollis Saves Halloween, That's always been kind of a fun, approachable, easy story that has more of a festive look to it, that has more of a modern, contemporary design, that would make that looks a little silly, that looks fun and diverse. And so we knew that Hollis was going to need a specific type of artist. Now, I'm showing you all of these for a purpose. So then there's good all around. There's good all around. Tamara's book is a book that's kind of gentle and easy, and it's there's time for play and joy and making skateboards and doing all of that kind of stuff. There's fun stuff. So we knew that we were looking for an artist that could produce stuff that's not necessarily watercolor, but that could give us a bit of a welcoming, inclusive, gentle, um, um, well-rounded approach to these beautiful soft words, these beautiful gentle words. Needed a book that was fun, and so certainly has that. Um, and then on to like My Expansion. My Expansion is from Nancy Monet, is a book that has a lot of really strong images about learning and trying to make decisions, and it needed art that supported these really big ideas in the book, but at the same time could be approachable and light enough so that it wasn't so that the words weren't heavier. Excuse me, the art wasn't heavier than the words. And so there's lots of stuff in here. You see that little red balloon, that consistent marker that moves through a book is also part of ours as well. So we have a book here that was actually uh, real world. These pictures exist. These cut pictures exist. This book is art that's done on computer, that's done electronically. Same with this one. So all of these different books, there's different styles to that. We have artists in our circle that can do online art, design art online, like Procreate, etc. We have artists that can produce physical art as well. We have artists with multiple strengths. So Michelle's book here, My Expansion, which is the watercolor book, but is actually done. These bears exist. They're cut from paper. All of this art is actually physically in the world. Michelle also produces watercolor art for books like the upcoming 10 Elegant Elephants, things like that. Why am I telling you so much about art tonight? The reason I'm telling you is that art, the art in a children's book, in a picture book, is at least as much responsible for the success of the book as the words are. I'd even say that in some cases, the success of the book, regardless of what the words are, relies on the art. This is sometimes a hard lesson for authors who, for some reason, have been taught to believe, have come to believe that their words are the primary thing that drives a children's book. That is not always true. There is a balance, and as a publisher, I have to be very aware of this. There has to be a balance between good words and a good story and good art. These things have to be in balance. So we've had some submissions recently with really good art. I generally frown and tell people don't send me art because usually it's not good. But in the last, I don't know, months or so, I've had some books with art that's spectacular. That's been really good. That's spectacular art. But the story that came with it is like, oh no, 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 that we predicted that from page 2, right? It's just totally predictable. There's no real pattern interrupt in the text, in the words. So I can have a beautiful book, but bad story. And the art will be an attraction. Tamara, you bring up a good point. The art will be an attraction, but it's not going to be sustained because the text is good. So that balance between really good text and really good art is important. A lot of times, and some authors will get really hung up on, I'm the author, therefore my name has to be the biggest thing on the book because I wrote it. And the truth is this: books like this, and Tamara, by the way, is not one of those authors who are ego-based, but a book like this gets people's attention because of the cover. The cover gets the first attention. The cover gets the attention, right? And so you can have a beautiful story. 10 Ballet Dancers is a fun story, but if it had really bad anime looking art, manga looking art, stuff like that, that book would not sell like this book sells. So the art is a primary tool for how a book sells. People pick up books not because I think there might be a good story in here. If this book just said 10 ballet dancers across the front, and that's all it said, 10 ballet dancers, that's it, there'd be no reason to buy this book. People would not do that. This art gets this book sold. The fact that there are male and female presenting figures on this cover gets the book sold. The fact that on the back there's a diverse collection of young dancers on the back gets the book sold, which then leads people to the creative and inventive story that Amanda has within it. I thought the same thing when I was designing the cover for Hollis Saves Halloween. You know, there's a high energy here. You can tell by the character that this isn't going to be super heavy. It's an important message, but it's not super heavy. Raisa Thomas did this. And even in places in the book where there's some drama, where there's some things happening, even there, the image is still a little bit light. So this is an important thing. So what I tell you tonight about art in children's books is, if you are an author, your book must be supported by a really good illustrator. It is very rare that your friend from junior high who you've known for 25 years can illustrate your book. That is super rare. I get a little twitchy when somebody starts to say, oh, but my friend does art. Now, there have been times when the friend does art. There have been times when somebody says, I'm going to do my own art for this book, right? There are times that people have said that and they've had some creative stuff published by companies that publish that stuff. So my important message for you this evening is that the success of a children's book authors is balanced by really good art. Really good art. If you go to get a professional review of a book, someone who's the reviewer is going to comment on both the art and the text. And if one is out of balance, then the book's going to get a much lower review. Because a good story alone in a children's book is not enough to carry the book, nor in most cases is just really good art enough if there's no story behind it. Otherwise, it might as well just be a collection of, here's some pictures, what do you think's happening here, right? So the balance is really important. Am I hearing that the words and arts should be in balance so that a child weak in words can fill with art, or when the art is weak and the words can fill the cognitive difference? There is power and ways for people to say, what do you think's happening in this picture? There's ways to preview art. There's ways to say to art, and use a piece of art in a book for additional conversation or connection. So in our book, Apples for the Princess, for example, there's one where the father is sorting apples into a basket. There's all kinds of questions there about what type of apples, can you count the apples, what's going to happen with the apples, because there's a bunch of other stuff that happens. So there's all these questions that can be built from that. Children absolutely take in art and words at the level that their brains are ready to take them in. Now we get into a whole nother conversation. Can you tell scary stories to children? Yes, you can, because children's brains absorb what they're ready to absorb. And the same with pictures. A child can look at pictures and, you can just say something like, oh, here's a funny picture of Hollis on the back of a fire truck. But then when you go back through a picture like that with a child and say, what else do you see? What else do you see? What else is happening? What's going on in these pictures? There's an opportunity for the child to further access parts of the art that maybe they didn't access in the first reading. Um, I think the balance is really important. I think the balance is super important. I can't, I should not publish a children's book that's got great art and a weak story, because a weak story will get you dinged by people who review a book. In the same vein, a book with a fun story but terrible art is also going to result in no sales and bad reviews. There's a real line between the two of them. The author themselves, some of them have to really struggle with their own ego and learn that the artist is as important as the beautiful words they've written. It's not enough to make beautiful pictures unless for a children's book. It's not enough to make, my printer's yelling at me. It's not enough to make beautiful pictures without a really good story. So I hope that makes sense. Oh, Tamara, this is really interesting. In library story time, non-readers need art to convey the story. Only the reader needs perfection in the prose. Yes, there are children who will pick up a book and just flip, who do not read, and just flip through the pictures and make up stories about them. That is part of the development of literacy, for children to create stories according to pictures, or for children to have heard the story and then later back on their own read the story back to themselves or to others by putting in words that they think they've heard to it, right? So they can go through that, and then they can go through the art and say, and then so they're retelling the story that they're not, but they're not reading it. They're pretending to read. That's part of the development of literacy. Um, yeah, great. Oh, great comments from y'all tonight. Thank you so much for that. Let me make sure I've got everybody's stuff in here. Da, da, da. Let me get back to that one right there. There we go. All right. So that's my thing about, when we're talking about children's art and things like that we've been talking about lately, um, and children's books that I'm going to continue to talk about for the next couple of weeks. The art is as important as the words. And sometimes that's really hard for some authors to hear. Um, they've lived with the story for a really long time. Can good art pull up a bad story? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think if a story is not strong, if the story is not predictable from, the second page, then I don't know that the art will save it. I could be wrong about that. Maybe somebody can find me an example of that, of a poor story but really good art. I don't know. We strive here to get a really strong balance between the two. When I have a new book ready to go and I put out a call to artists, I don't just go to one artist and say, "Can you do this?" I put out a call that may get answered by 10, 20, 30 different artists, and I weed through those things. We have a very specific methodology of doing a call for artists, and I weed through those things to get what I want. I try to get down to about 5 to 10 choices and then willow out from there. As soon as you put out a call for illustrators, you're going to get a ton of junk. You just get absolute tons of junk. People don't read your calls. People don't read your requests. We put codes in our calls that if people don't answer the codes, then I know that they haven't read. And I'm not interested in people who won't actually read instructions. So, good from there. I'll talk to you later. See you next week.